All right. Hi, Stuart. Hi, everybody. How are you guys doing today?
Good, how
Fine,
are
thank you.
you?
Doing excellent. Thank you very much. So first of all, Stuart, this is your directorial debut with Catching Dust. Kind of tell us about the process about getting this movie made. What was your
Mm,
inception for the idea, and then how long did you work on it?
I just made my last short film at that time, which was
Hmm.
very different. It was about the Libyan refugee crisis, and I knew I was ready after making that to make a feature film. So I had this idea to develop a story in the middle of the desert. I like this idea of creating a world where a character could be completely isolated from the world and trying to figure out her place within it. Um, and then it just went through a development process. One of the producers from my last short film, Mark David, um, we got on really well, and we committed to making a feature together. And it really went from there. We developed the script, and then we ended up working with Pressman Films, and that was kind of insane to me because as a kid I kind of grew up watching American Psycho, and Ed
Hmm.
mm.
Pressman's name was like the first
Yeah.
name that comes up. I'm like, yeah,
Iconic, yeah.
I was like, wow,
Those
like
are
I
the
really,
best moments,
yeah. So
yeah.
that was kind of crazy. So,
Mhm.
and then from that point we then went through the process of getting a cast, and it was kind of surreal to me to be even like having people like Erin reading the script and interested in it, and then kind of even more surreal to say that she wanted to do it and was going to work on it. So I'm a kid from a very working class background in London. It was very
Mm.
interesting for me and kind of surreal in a way to go through this process of me making effective an American
Mm.
film.
Yeah, I can imagine so. So Aaron, he mentioned that you were very interested in the script from a pretty early stage.
Mhm.
What about the story of Catching Dust drew you to it?
Oh my God, it was the lack of formula. It was the lack of that predictable, formulaic safe zone that I feel like we stay in so often. And I'm not just saying that like in terms of the shock value of anything. I felt like growing up when I watched movies and television, I felt less alone in my little weird like quirks that made me feel like low in certain moments. And it would make my day better just by seeing people go through even dark things. And so I feel like when we make these stories that aren't glorifying anything, and they're
Hmm.
instead of glorifying, they're confronting things. Ironically, obviously escapism needs to exist in the industry, but we also do need to do the opposite, which is like which I think was this. It allowed us to tell a story with the backdrop of a western, and that was very appealing to me. To play a character from you know Texas when I'm from New York City, and I just
Yeah.
like I don't know what that's like. Like I grew up in Manhattan amongst like the opposite environment and the opposite people that this young woman went grew up in. And that was so appealing to me because you're so often as an actress or an actor, you're cast as roles that people can really see you as at face value. And I just appreciated that Stuart trusted me to not be the New Yorker in this as well.
Mhm.
But it really was just like it was the fact that it was like escapism compounded with the confrontational nature of the film, and that dichotomy that I want to see more as an audience member. And like Stuart, like I don't come from a family in the industry. Every moment is all the more surreal to me. Like for me, the fact that I even do this as a job is crazy that I can, because I don't come from a world where what you love to do the most and what your passion is your day job.
Hmm.
So if I get to be a part of a movie, that's the kind of movie that I would go and see. That's so rare as an actress. That really is. So when you sent me the script, or when the script was sent to me, it was like it was just such an obvious yes, because
Hmm.
it's so rare. So many of these films that we do, of course, because we're grateful to work, but to be in one that you would want to see and that you want to be a part of a pseudo movement to keep those films present in this industry is just it combined all the elements that would appeal to me to play the character and be in the project.
Well, and what I found very interesting about that is you mentioned how you're
Mm,
from New York, you're from this like much bigger scene, and all of a sudden this is a
mm,
very isolationist kind of movie.
mm,
And Stuart, you really tap into that with not only making it very internal for these characters, not only within their own relationships, but within the four relationships that exist. It's a very emotional film as well. It's just dripping with emotion.
mm,
Tell me kind of about the process of making sure that these characters felt balanced and not overly emotional or having too much anxiety, and still living their lives as real people.
I think so. There's only so much you can really do from the script. You do your best to try and create that balance on the page. But I have to say, the credit for that goes to these guys, because they really were authors in this piece as well. It was a very collaborative experience.
I think the credit. I'm gonna argue with that and say the credit goes to you. Because I do. I'm gonna argue with that. Do you want to hear why?
Yeah.
Because you made sure that throughout it all, like there were these moments where Gina had like excitement and hope, and you made sure that that was retained, because that's a human need, and I think you deserve the credit for that too. We played with it, but I think you deserve some credit there.
Well, I'm going to push back. No, I mean, I appreciate that compliment a lot. But I have to say, I really believe, like, people have watched them and said the performances are incredible, and honestly, I'm not doing faux humility here. I really give the credit to these guys, because they I'll give you a small example. I'd written in the script, so there's the kiss that happens at the beginning between Erin and Joe when he comes back from hunting. And I'd written that as just, she goes in to try and initiate a little bit of a kiss, and he pulls away. And she was like, no, this needs to be a proper kiss. We need to see the love between them when we see it. And as soon as she said it, I was like, okay, let's try it. I wasn't completely convinced. As soon as I saw it, it made total sense. That scene is better because of her idea. So my ideas are the baseline. If you just follow my ideas, I have a decent film, but it's what everyone else brings to it. Now, trust me, I'm not one of those people that's going to take an idea that I don't agree with. But these guys brought so much that amplified the ideas that I had and surpassed them. And that's really where the magic lies, I think, in what they've done.
And really quickly, I forgot about this, but Jai and I had this exercise we did with each other before we started filming.
Yeah.
That really influenced my decision in that moment, and in the entirety of like that beginning stage, to make sure the love was felt, which is we wrote letters to each other about as Clyde and Gina. I still have them about when we first fell in love and like what it felt like, and that was one of the most, and he initiated that. And I'm the prep fiend. He's so much less neurotic than I am, and so we're such a yin and yang duo. And I could not have asked for a better person to be around in every sense of the way. But we wrote letters to each other, and that to me led to this necessity and this knowledge that the film would live or die based on whether or not you could believe that there was once a love that deep there. So yeah, so that those letters meant that I had to, in that moment, infuse that kiss with that love. And so that's why I'm all for those kinds of ways of prepping. But yeah, it'll be interesting to look back on those letters one day. They're really emotional.
Yeah.
And I was going to ask about your prep work with Jai, because that does feel like a genuine relationship. And then I was also going to ask, you have to have a very different relationship with Ryan. Can you tell us about how you built those kind of barriers between the two different relationships?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, like I said, with Jai, we became such good friends so quickly that the familiarity and the comfort and the love was present, and that was easy. And then we wrote the letters, and that's when it started to tip into the heartbreaking component for me, because I knew where the story was going, and I didn't know it in a way that was unproductive for myself as the actress, because I think Gina from the start knows that something's off. She's starting to feel like she's a caged bird, essentially. And I think, I mean, listen, I think that, again, it's a specific situation, but Gina is someone who grew up, like I said, in an entirely different environment amongst entirely different people. And yet I found so many parallels, and her specificities allowed me to find parallels. And so she meets someone who allows her to envision her life going in a different direction. And it actually, and who also allows her to feel her self-worth, because this art is so important to her, and self-worth is such a big thing for us, right? Because we really need to feel that in order to step into a next chapter, or into whatever we want, in order to manifest what we want. And so I think that Clyde is the person. I think that it's very easy to look at Clyde as a person who she fell in love with, her first love, but then ends up suppressing her. But he suppresses her because he loves her so much. And it's abandonment issues, right? And
Mhm.
abandonment issues, once you feel that with a character and with what's happened with him and you feel his pain, that's what I love about it, is that, again, you can't put him in a box. And yet it's just something that I ultimately am able to transcend my love for him to explore who I could be. And that's what Ryan's character is to me, what they are to me. It's like there's this whole world out there, you know?
Mhm.
There's this whole world out there, and that is something that I think everyone needs to keep in mind, because we all deserve to be informed about what's going on. And I think it changes her life. Yeah, I wonder what would have happened had she not met them. It would have been crazy. Just reminds you that we really need to, exposure is a big thing, and being sheltered is paralyzing.
Well, and then you have that one scene that you wrote kind of later in the film, Stuart, where they go into town, Dina and Erin go into town. Kind of tell us about how you wanted to take them from that isolation back into society and what you're trying to accomplish with that sequence, because it's, I think, one of the really strong sequences in this film.
Yeah, I think you know, Gina's character at that point has been so suffocated in a way. She's been so kind of drip fed into it, and her freedom's been taken away to the point where she's out there for that period of time, hasn't seen anyone for a huge amount of time. And it's a scary thing for her, because there is, I think, in that scene, there's that discussion that she has where, there's, the way that humans grow, there's always going to be resistance, right? And with her, to be able to go through these challenges to become a more empowered person, you're going to meet resistance, your insecurities and fear take hold. So for her, of course, there's that moment of like, oh wow, we're out, and then I'm outside.
She's like an agoraphobic person who's left the house the first time.
Literally. And then, but then that's also right with fear, because she's also in a situation where she knows that freedom can lead to her severing a relationship and take her into steps where she could be exposed as not having value. It's like what you talked about earlier, when you say everyone's looking for self-worth and value. But if you're not given it, sometimes you internalize the idea that maybe you don't have any.
Yes.
And so there's always this battle with Gina that maybe she doesn't have any. That's the reality. Or maybe she does. And it's she's never going to be able to take those steps towards the freedom that she deserves without those insecurities coming in. So it's this mix of, as she says, this like, wow, I'm back out in the world that I've wanted to be in, but this comes at a cost, and am I prepared to lose this to gain this, basically?
Yeah.
And then, so Erin, you're obviously coming off of like big production with The Boys. You've previously worked on like Jessica Jones and in the King Kong movies. What was it like to go to a much smaller, it seems very intimate set?
It's how I started out, really. I started out with smaller films. It just so happened that way. I wish I could say that I curated it intentionally, but the first film I did was a tiny film with a tiny budget, and we shot B-roll on the weekends, and then we went to Sundance. And it was like, at that time, so the King Kong directors who directed that film, King of Summer, Jordan Vogt Roberts, and it was so special. And I love these films. And then, little films that turned into big films like Captain Fantastics. Those are the ones that, like, I, growing up, loved to watch. And I credit that to my father, because he loves those kinds of films. So it doesn't say anything about the other kinds of things that I've been able to do, especially with The Boys, because that defies genre. And I really love that The Boys is like, I can say that The Boys is like a superhero show, but it's about superhero fatigue. So it's kind of cool to balance it out with these indies that, to me, there's independent film is where the gray area lies. And then The Boys definitely lies in that area. So I feel very fortunate, and I feel very, very, I don't know what's going to happen, because I don't know how I'm ever going to be able to work on anything that it feels reductive in nature whatsoever. But I will, because I'm a human and actors need to work. but like I just feel so lucky, and I love independent films. They're my favorite because they tend to be the most they tend to me, prove that the whole concept of just genre is an antiquated concept because it's always so reductive, right?
Yep.
And for that very reason, I just, indies are just so rich, and they're my favorite, and I love them, and they're what got me into acting to begin with. And I started in independent films, and I just hope that they keep up, and I hope that they find that their placement in the industry like it had before, because since COVID and the pandemic, it's been hard. They've been casualties of those moments in time, and I think that we need to make a really, really strong effort to collectively make sure that they remain present. So I was just happy to be able to be existing in that world again. It's my favorite.
Well, it's an awesome world for us to exist in for the time that we get to spend in it. And thank you guys so much for this movie. It's really is a very heartfelt piece of cinema, and I really had a great time with it. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for the
Likewise,
question.
thank you.
Have a great rest of your day.